Alright guys, we are back on Crutchfield, and I want to let you know ahead of time this is going to take a little while, so be sure and go ahead and grab a beer or a glass of wine or a little dab of whiskey or just a nice tall glass of iced tea, because this will take a few minutes. But what we're looking at today are four 8-channel amplifiers. All four have built-in DSPs. So these are one shot, get her done. You know, you put in your head unit and you hook this guy up and put in your speakers, and it handles everything. So this is what I picked from was a variety across the board. Some less expensive, and the top of the line, what I would consider the flagships being like the JL here, and some competitors like the Alpine, and then some unusual things like this matchup 8 DSP. I chose the different guys kind of across the gambit here, and there's not going to be a clear winner. I can tell you that right off the bat. It's going to be more about what particular features you're looking for, whether or not one of these will shine brighter than the others. So we're going to start by looking at the prices and the basic functionality. Now the Alpine runs at $799. The matchup is a $1,200 unit, and the JL VX808i is $1,800, so it's the most expensive of the four. And then the JBL DSP 486 is $439. All of these guys have got at least a 4-star review, and so let's get started on going through the lineup. Oh, just as a side note, the matchup only has one review, and it is a 5-star, but the rest of them have got a relatively decent amount of reviews, and they've got 4 stars or above. Starting out, I'm going to keep hide similar turned off so we can see all the things that are the same. These are all brand new amplifiers. Starting out with the Alpine. The Alpine runs 50 watts times 6 and 300 watts times 2. So it gives you 2 300-watt channels and 6 50-watt channels. That is a very nice lineup for a solid car stereo setup. Just saying, I like that. The matchup gives you similar numbers, but a little less and more depending on how you look at it. 65 watts by 6 and 160 watts by 2. And then the JL is a 75 watt by 8 across the board. And the JBL is 40 watts by 8 across the board. And that's all of those are going to be 4 ohm ratings. The Alpine, that number is at 2 ohms, so it's 50 watts by 6. That part is at 2 ohms, and for the 6 channels. 50 watts by 6 at 2 ohms. So it's going to be less than that by 6 at 4 ohms. You can figure about half of that. Probably 25, 30 watts by 6 at 4 ohms. That's going to be a little bit more powerful than your car stereo, but it'll give you the control of the DSP. Also, it's got the 300 watt by 2, which is probably going to be 150 watts by 2 at 4 ohms. It doesn't state, so I'm not really sure. As far as the matchup goes, I'm assuming all of that's 4 ohms. The JL audio, you can, remember I said it was 75 watts by 8. At 2 ohms, it's 100 by 8. So if you reduce that ohm load on that JL audio, you can get that up to 100 watts by 8. And you can bridge channels on it to get 200 watts by 4. So if you bridge all those channels and turn that 8-channel amp into a 4-channel amp, you can get 200 watts by 4 at, I'm guessing at 2 ohms, which makes sense. So you'd bridge 4 ohms down to 2 ohms, and you can get running 2, Yeah, you get it. And then the JBL does not have anything listed in that department. However, it is 40 watts by 8 at 4 ohms and 60 watts by 8 at 2 ohms. So you can get some decent power out of the little JBL. Minimum impedance on the Alpine period is 4 ohms. And JL's minimum impedance is 2 ohms. And so is JBL's minimum impedance in 2 ohms. Now you'll notice that the JL and the JBL are two very different in price range, but they're going to have a lot of similarities as we go through here. I was looking through them, and there's a lot of similarities between those two amplifiers, more than you would think. The frequency response is, all of them cover everything. However, I will give you the numbers. The Alpine PXE C8088 is 20 hertz to 40,000 hertz. We can't hear 40,000 hertz. And anything below 20 hertz is pretty much inaudible shake. So that's pretty extreme, way out there. The matchup runs 10 hertz to 22,000 hertz. The JL VX808i runs 12 hertz to 24K, and the JBL runs 10 hertz to 22K. So they all cover the gambit. Now here's one of the places where I think is important to pay attention. The Alpine PXE C80-88 has a 10% total harmonic distortion at its RMS rated power. And the matchup does not list a THD. The JL and the JBL both have a 1% total harmonic distortion at their RMS rated power. So the JBL and the JL are going to have the least amount of distortion. Having said that, 10% at maximum rated power, maximum rated RMS power, is not something you're probably going to notice. Just so you know, don't freak out about that 10% because you're probably not going to notice that anyway. Signal to noise ratio on the Alpine is 95 dB. The matchup is 104 dB. The JL and the JBL are 80 and 90 dB respectively. And on these numbers, the lower this dB number, the better. So, and this round, the JL is number 1 there, and the JBL is number 2. Then the Alpine is 3, and the matchup is 4. Again, all 4 of these are low enough that they're not going to be something that's going to really bother anybody. So it's nitpicky stuff, but if you want to know, there you go. Now, all 4 of them are Class D. Matchup says it's a Class GD. And I don't know what GD means. So, yeah, they're all Class D. Let's just consider that. Low pass frequency, or low pass crossover frequencies. Alpine just says, yeah, we have that. And of course, matchup gives you a frequency of 20 hertz to 2480, 20,480 hertz. And then JL just doesn't care. They're going to say via tuning software. And then the JBL gives you 20 to 20. So 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. They all have a variety of low pass slopes. They all have a variety of high pass slopes, all the ones that you're going to want. So the DSP looks pretty good on all of them. There is some details I'm going to cover here in a minute to help fill in those gaps though. Bass boost we do not care about, but matchup's the only one that has a bass boost. Bass boost frequency, matchup boost from 20 hertz to 60 hertz, so it's got a variable bass boost, but none of the others have a bass boost at all. None of them are fan cooled. The Alpine's fuse rating is 40 amps. The matchup is 50. The JL's 80, and the JBL is 40 amps. They all have speaker level inputs. That's an important detail. This is an interesting bit though. The Alpine has 8 preamp outputs, meaning that you can run through the Alpine and use it as a DSP and send those outputs out to other amplifiers and build a more elaborate system. This is to me, a very important detail to keep in mind. The Alpine can start out as a complete unit with a DSP and the amplifier built in together. And if later on you wanted to make more amplifiers or bigger amplifiers, get more power, the Alpine can turn itself into basically a DSP and then let you amplify with other units. Having 8 outputs is a good thing. So in my opinion, they win that round hands down. The matchup gives you 1, I'm assuming that's for a sub. The JL audio gives you 2 outputs that are preamp, and I'm assuming that will also be for a sub. The JBL does not give you any options and preamp outputs at all. They're all amplifier sized. 8 to 10 inch is the little JBL is smaller. It's quite small. Little bitty dudes. Now the warranties are very similar. The Alpine gives you a year, the matchup gives you 2 years, the JL also gives you 2 years, and the JBL gives you a year, and that's on parts and labor. So that's the basic specs and the comparison between the specs on these guys. I'm going to go back up here and talk about them a little bit more, stuff that's not listed in the specs. All right. The Alpine is interesting to me because it gives you an automatic digital signal processing. And I think it's the only one that has that possibility. Yeah. So it's got my attention, guys. This is the one that grabs my attention, one of the big ones, because it gives you 6 channels at 50 watts, or actually, 6 channels at 50 watts at 2 ohms. Not a ton of power, but it gives you a nice 300 watts at 2 ohms for 2 subs, or you could run 8, stages. It's got a nice power output for a SQ system. The signal noise ratio is fairly low. It gives you all the bells and whistles you want. The only thing I would worry about, even the slightest bit, would be that 10% THD at rated power, and I don't really think that would be a major issue, but it is something to keep in mind. Also, you're going to be limited to 4 ohms impedance across the board. So while it's a good, well-rounded system, I think it's a great starter system for somebody. The price is $788 to cover all the amplification and also to give you a DSP with the ability to automatically process. So I'm assuming it has a microphone with it and something to be able to read the car. And let's see here. That looks like it's got something right there. So it's got lots of cords. Plug there for your high-level inputs and all that stuff. There's a controller for up front to handle some different options, probably bass control, maybe volume control, and maybe some presets. I'm pretty sure what this is right here is a microphone. And so that's pretty nice, that little plate to go on your dash there. And it's got an app, so you can go in there and custom. Okay, so you can customize your own EQ tune. That is cool. But the fact that it's got that little guy, it looks like a Bluetooth. That's a Bluetooth dongle. All right. Oh, okay. Yeah, there we go. So the fact that you've got an auto-tuning DSP, which is cool for people that don't want to mess with it, and app functionality, looks like a pretty good app too. And you got the little volume control for the dash, or bass knob, volume control, all those bells and whistles. To me, that's a pretty good little unit. I like the looks of this unit. So I like the looks of the Alpine in that regard. The matched up is another story. I don't know. I have never heard of this brand, so I don't know. The look on it is really kind of odd. So I'm not really sure where to go with that. It's got all the right stuff, and it's a lot of plugs. No terminals really. It's a bunch of wiring harness and plugs. So this is something you would definitely wire up and have completely hidden somewhere, because it doesn't really have a nice aesthetic that you'd want to put on display. And it is a $1,200 setup, so for an unknown brand, that kind of scares me a little bit. But overall, it doesn't show bad specs. Still, if I'm going to put $1,200 into one, I would probably go the JL route instead. The JL, we all know what this guy's got going on. It's bomb. So let's check out the JBL. The JBL is $439. Now, one of the things it does not have is any preamp output. So this is a one-shot deal. This is kind of like a smartphone. You buy it, you use it. Whenever you get tired of using it, you get rid of it and get something else. You can't really, keep it on because the DSP doesn't have any pre-out, so you can't DSP a signal and then send it to another amplifier. This is a guy that has to do it all or do nothing, essentially. I suppose you could send an amplified signal out of this into a high level input on another amplifier, so you could theoretically use it that way. Not a ton of power, but this little guy right here will probably hide just about anywhere. So if you just want to get some really good sound and a DSP into a car with all the channels you need to do the whole car and not take up a bunch of space or not do a bunch of crazy stuff, this little JBL might be the bomb. It kind of reminds me a bit of a Kicker Key, which is another amplifier. The Key, though, is only automatic. This does not have an automatic functionality. However, it is the size and the installation, area of the Key. So I think it would be a decent choice for someone who's, if you want to put a system in your wife's car, you want it to sound good. She's not trying to break windows or anything, but she likes good music. Or your kid, daughter, son, get a little system in there to where they can have some good sound and you can keep the speakers from blowing up. A nice little JBL system with this little amplifier as your base would not be a terrible choice. And you could also add a subwoofer amplifier and have it not run through here at all. And just to add the bottom end if you wanted to kick up the bottom end a little bit. So yeah, I can see a use case for it. However, if I'm going to pick from this group all the way around, I think my pick's going to be the Alpine PXC C80-88. It's got an automatic DSP. It's got a very nice DSP app. It's got decent power on 6 channels and a really nice little subwoofer outputs. It has the ability to send a signal out to turn into nothing but a DSP and send a signal out to other amplifiers. So you can build on this, and you can build on this system and continue growing. You don't have to get rid of what you've got. You can use it and you can continue building. It's got the dash controller, Bluetooth dongle. It's a really nice package, guys. If I'm going to pick an 8-channel setup with a DSP, and at $800, I mean, yeah, it's not cheap, but comparing it to other stuff in the same bracket, it's much less expensive. I think I would choose it over the JL VX800. Overall, I think the power is more well distributed for the system. It's got more power for the channels that you want on the subwoofers and less power on the mids and highs, which is fine. It has all the right things. So, I mean, at $800, I don't think it would be too bad. And as far as the 10% THD issue goes, whenever you add other amplifiers at some point and start using them more, then that won't even be a thing that you'll have to worry about, because that's going to be an amplifier issue. And I honestly don't believe that's going to be a problem anyway. I've heard amplifiers with significantly more and it's not something that's really an issue. But it is something to be known, and that would be my pick. At the price, because if you're looking at this, just as an example of what I'm saying here, if you're looking at this Alpine and you're comparing it to this JL, all right, it's $1,000 more for the JL. It does a similar thing. Let's say that you didn't like the THD, that was bothering you for some reason, right? You got $1,000 extra that you could use to buy multiple amplifiers, and then you would have a really, really good DSP with auto-tuning abilities and all that stuff that comes with it. You would have those 8 channels if you wanted to use them, but you could, I mean, like, you just got more in the end. JL has a really good software, but it's also known to be kind of cantankerous, kind of weird sometimes. It's this, they're a bit wonky to use, and of course there's people out there that are JL pros that are laughing and going, oh no man, it's great, until you're one of those people that sit down to the software and you're trying to tune with this. You start realizing just how overwhelming it can be, and it's not ideal. So I don't think it's worth the price that they charge for this. I don't think this package is worth the price. Is it a good amplifier? Yes. Is it a good DSP? Yes. Is it well built? Absolutely. Does it have a good brand behind it? Absolutely. But I still don't think all that adds up to the price tag. What I can get for this amount of money, I can beat this. And I think this is a good choice. The Alpine PXE CA-88. That's going to be my choice in this lineup out of all of these guys I'm showing you. If you guys like my reviews and you like my advice, you think I'm crazy, whatever the case may be sure to hit that subscribe button for more content like this in the future. I'm going to be trying to do more comparisons and more shopping. So if you guys are interested in that kind of stuff and you need help here and there to help push you in one direction or the other to give you that little extra bit that you're missing, maybe I am that extra bit you're missing. So hit the subscribe button and I'll see you guys later.